friend. She's a very kind-hearted person. So give it up for Sarah.
Thank you. I'm also kind of nervous, and he's videoing it because that was what my mom wanted. So I'm Sarah Simpson. I'm 42. I'm a fiber artist. I've been married to that guy for 21 years. We have 3 teenage sons, 3 dogs, and I work from home. I have a full-time corporate job that I've had for 21 years. And until this month, I've been the sole income provider for our family. And I'm currently preparing for my first solo show at the courtroom in next January. So I'm really excited about that. Yes. So before I kind of dive into my background, I just want to kind of open up to a question. So, you know, I'm obviously at a different life stage than most of you. So when you think about your future, post-college or post whatever your current state is, what concerns do you have about keeping your art practice or art goals going? Or have you thought about that? Do you have any concerns? What kind of concerns do you have about that?
Won't have time.
Time. Yeah.
I barely have time now, so it's a struggle.
Yes, absolutely. Well, when I give you my background, I also kind of want to talk about how I've been able to work that in. You know, because job, family, we've had parents that have been ill, you know, and just a busy life. But so my background, as a kid, I always loved creating. I was always drawing. My grandpa worked for a paper factory, so he'd always bring home these big boxes of paper, so I just had paper all the time. I tried cross stitch. I like to doodle bubble letters in math class and make posters for school. And my dad, while it wasn't his job, he was artistic, and I have some of his paintings and drawings at home, so he taught me a lot along the way. But I never really felt like art could be a career for me, because I didn't feel like I had some special talent. So I went to college. I didn't finish, but I went for elementary education because everyone told me, oh, you'd make a good teacher. But I was really kind of aimless and no real passion for it, so I left. And then I met Jay, and we got married when we were 20, which I don't recommend for everybody, but it was the best decision I ever made. Our 19-year-old thinks it's crazy, but it was good for us. So we decided to start our family pretty young, so by the time we were 28, we had 3 kids under the age of 6. So my 20s, there wasn't a lot of art happening other than, you know, drawing with my kids and, you know, that kind of thing, because there just wasn't time. And again, I never felt like I had one like true medium. And then I kind of fell into the career that I'm in. It's one that values experience. So I stayed with that, and then in 2007, Jay left his job to be a stay-at-home dad, and he's done that until recently. I still kind of dabbled around in art, but there just wasn't time. But then when my kids got older, I started feeling kind of antsy. I remember a day where they were all kind of independently playing for the first time, and Jay was doing something, and I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. And he's like, go, just get out of the house. So I went to the bookstore and I started buying magazines, and then I would cut images that spoke to me and paste them in like a sketchbook. And that was kind of my step back towards some sort of practice. In 2007, I learned about Etsy, and I started a shop with a friend, and that's when I started diving into a lot of stuff. I played around with jewelry, mosaics, collage art, painting, embroidery. I really loved photography for a while, but I just felt really desperate to find kind of my medium. I taught myself to crochet in 2009 with like YouTube tutorials as a way, not for art, but because I struggle with some chronic illness issues. It was just a relaxing hobby that I thought would be a nice way to spend my time. I blogged for a little while, which you could find some blogs out there, and they were creative based. But I felt kind of trapped in my corporate career because I didn't know how to make my way towards the artist life I wanted to be living. But the biggest thing and the most important thing was that I just kept making things, even if they were terrible. So over time, crochet became kind of my #1 stress reliever. I really loved like the tactile experience and the fact that I could make usable items. I loved making things for people. And then I started kind of trying my hand making stuffed animals, unicorns, dolls, selling them at craft shows. and I loved people's reactions. They just loved the color and the touch, and so I kept kind of moving from there. I started trying to make ornaments that looked like food, just to try to challenge myself with taking yarn and making it into something that looked like something else. In 2017, I lost my dad to cancer, so for a few months I didn't do anything. But then that summer, that kind of prompted me to realize life is really short. You know, you never know when your time is up. So I started, kind of playing around with basic faces of kind of iconic individuals that would be easy to make, like Bowie and Jerry Garcia and Jimi Hendrix, putting them on clothes. But the biggest turning point for me was that same summer. There was a gallery in South End of Charlotte, CL Gallery, that was an artist collective, and they've closed now, but they were open for about 10 years. They had an artist call, and I went to the gallery to see their current show, and their aesthetic was just really in my wheelhouse. And I don't know what it was, but something just kind of sparked me to see if I could make crochet into something and submit it on a total whim. I had seen some crochet artists online that I liked. Oleg is a really big one. I don't know if you've looked her up. Joe Hamilton and Katika, they're all on Instagram. So I knew that there was possibility there, and I'm really inspired. I love the Grateful Dead, and I'm inspired by like the psychedelic concert posters of the 60s. So I decided to try to crochet my version of that. So I worked nonstop for a month. It was August, so our kids didn't have sports practices, but I'd get up at like 5 a.m. and work for a few hours before I had to work. I'd work in the evenings, weekends. I think the weekend, the deadline of the show was, I think I spent about 30 hours just finishing 2 pieces to submit, and I thought, that's it, I did it. I finished 2 pieces, and I thought that was the end. But a couple weeks later, I found out one of my pieces got in. And after that, I started becoming more confident and started trying more things and realizing that this crochet thing can be a lot of things. There's also that underdog feeling, because in a lot of art communities, fiber arts in general aren't seen as real fine art, but crochet and that kind of stuff isn't, which the feminist in me then wants to prove them wrong. So I think that's another motivating factor. And then I found, the fry arts community, which was helpful for me, and now I'm working on a dream of my own solo show, which I'm simultaneously super excited about and terrified that I won't get it all done, nobody will come, all those good imposter syndromes. So a lot of my work obviously is inspired by color, emotions, those kind of emotions that feel really heavy and you can't really put a name on it, trying to showcase that. Music, people, fear inspires me and pushes me along, but really in my head, like my ultimate vision is I just want to create a world that I want to live in. Like if I could create this whole space, that would be a dream. Like you walk into a whole new world. That's ultimately where I'd like to go. So my art practice and my life now, I still have my same full-time job, and I will for the foreseeable future. Our youngest son starts high school next fall, so we still got a few years to get them all through school and done. I have a partner who supports me. We have plans, to get me out of that job, and we work together. So having somebody that supports you in your life, whether it's a spouse or a friend or a parent or a sibling, whoever. And the biggest thing is I realized that I can work on my dreams no matter what my current reality is, no matter what my time allows. You can find time if you really prioritize it. So my advice in some ways that you can prioritize it as you move towards different things in your lives. For us, minimizing our lives, simplifying, keeping our finances in check, makes life a lot easier than being in a lot of debt, and then that kind of traps you in certain situations. I adjusted my work schedule so I don't start till 9, so I have a lot of time in the morning. I'm usually up and working by 6:30 or 7 in the morning. This year I'll be doing that all year. Utilizing my weekends, vacation days. Art journaling is really important. Making art for just no purpose is good. You got to make the bad art to make the good art. So you even if it's just a little scribble, just something. Just keep it going. I give myself a lot of mini challenges using the materials I have instead of buying more. I've done still life challenges where let me see if I can crochet this banana or this apple. Attending these kinds of things, fry arts events and other events, and just continually, if you don't have time to make art, at least expose yourself and immerse yourself in it to keep yourself going. And really, I consider my art practice a form of self-care. It keeps me sane if I keep it going. And then the other thing is just when I'm not making art in every other aspect of my life, I just need to be present. I can't let it take over my whole world, but it needs to be part of that world. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about what I brought. It's kind of the evolution I kind of talked about. So I started out crocheting to make like blankets and hats and scarves, and then I moved on to the unicorns and dolls, and then this was one of the like real basic faces I started with, which made me start seeing that maybe I can do more with it. So this was the first one, and I kind of considered it a self-portrait in a very abstract way because it was right before my 40th birthday, and it was my very first piece to ever be in a gallery. I'm actually trying to figure out how to incorporate that into a tattoo. And then I just started experimenting more. This was my take on him before he grew his hair out. This was another show at CL, and then lately I've been working with this, I don't know where it's going, but just more sculptural things. I did some paper mache this summer to see how I can mix the two. I've been making yarn out of plastic bags, and I actually, for my show, I have a really big piece I'm working on. Utilizing it has kind of a fun texture. And then this one was my most recent, that was at the Friends of Fry Art show in November. And this stemmed from my challenge. I'd never really had a plan for it to become something. I just had a bunch of cotton yarn that I had to make a sweater, and I don't usually work in cotton. And I just started making an eye one day, and then as I started building and enjoying the colors, I started taking kind of selfies in weird positions until I got one that I thought was interesting, and then it just kind of grew from there. So a lot of my art, some of it I start with a very clear idea, sometimes it's an emotion, and sometimes I start going and then I hate it, and then I start doing stuff to try to fix it, and then it gets way better, and I don't know where it's going to end, And that's pretty much the approach that I take to it. So, kind of in closing, and then I'll leave you open for questions, and I definitely want you to come up and touch stuff because that's such a big part of the experience, and you don't get to touch it when it's hanging up somewhere, unfortunately. But I am going to work that into my show, at least one touch piece. But your present, but also your future, you're gonna have life choices and events that impact your practice. I mean, there's just no way around it. But it doesn't have to derail you. If it's important to you, you'll find ways to fit it in, even if it's small increments. Let yourself keep trying new things. I know that I am. Some of it's total failure, some of it turns out kind of cool or kind of weird. Just keep evolving and finding your voice, and most importantly, surround yourself with people that are supportive and that inspire you. Even if they're not artists, they may inspire you in some other way. So that's it. Any questions?